welcome to a whole new show. It's called Sell Me This Pro, and I'm going to explain the premise real quick. My friend BDog, who you can see here on your screen. Hey, BDog.
Oh.
BDog he does a lot of commentating in like the tier 2, tier 3 space, and he gets a chance to see like all the up and coming players, the ones that people are talking about, the ones that they aren't talking about. And we thought, how do we find a way to kind of showcase to you who you should be keeping an eye on or who you should be ignoring completely? And that was how the show was born. And that's pretty much all we've got, B-Dog. We haven't really thought further than that, right?
No, I quite like the idea, though. It's one of those where you see rumors circulating in Tier 1. Everyone goes, who's this guy? Why are they so special? What's the scouting network looking like and why they've been picked up? And it's like, well, if you don't really watch too much of Tier 2, Tier 3, you wouldn't really know sort of the nuances of this player, what sort of playstyle they have, what the kind of tendencies are for them, and why they've been picked up. But I do a lot of that, so I'm hoping I can bring some level of insight, and if not, we're just going to have a good time, and that's going to be fine as well.
But that's the thing, we're just going to talk about Counter-Strike. That's what we like. And the idea as well is, you can get it from the name, is there's like a little bit of a Wolf of Wall Street vibe here, because we're thinking we'll encourage you that if you did have money to invest in a player, this is maybe the player you should spend your money on, or maybe you shouldn't. And we can revisit some of these players in a couple of months' time to see if we got it right or wrong. And my fear here, B-Dog, is that in a couple of months' time, we come back and it turns out that if we were betting people, we would have made lots of money.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where we could kind of even play even more on Wolf of Wall Street, where we could say this player is a penny stock, and we're trying to sell them off to like a big org, but they're not as good as the big org thinks that they are. And we can sit here, we can say, we think these guys are like not very good, but this is why we think they've been picked up. Or we could say, these guys are awesome, and they're going to be amazing, and then we would be really rolling in it. So either way, we're making money. We're not really, but we could be.
We're not making any money. Unless you comment on this, the algorithm gods might smile on us. So there you go. You can tell us how wrong we are or how right. Yeah, there we go. Give it a like, subscribe, do all the YouTube things that we ask. But we're going to jump into, because it's the first episode, we thought it would be a good idea to not give you one, but two pros that we're going to try to sell to you. Both of them are names that are pretty topical at the moment. And I want to start with the player who, when his name came into the conversation and the rumors started spreading about this player, everyone went, wait, who the hell is that? And it is, of course, Ultimate, recently picked up by Team Liquid. B-Dog, straight off the bat, sell me this pro.
Okay, so Ultimate, it's going to be a bit of a tough sell, but it's not his fault. Because in my opinion, I'm going to say this straight away, I'm not sure he's ready for the call-up to Tier 1, to be honest. But we'll have to wait and see. I'll dive into this quickly. Basically, who Ultimate is this Polish AWPer. He's incredibly aggressive right off the bat, something that Liquid have kind of suffered from when it comes to AWPers in sort of like the past few months anyway. But he's played on Luminar, played for PG2 out before that. Very domestic, very sort of like Polish organizations with Polish players. I don't know how much experience he's really had outside of sort of a domestic environment. Playing internationally is another sort of hurdle for Ultimate potentially to try and overcome. But ever since CS2 came out, he's been very good and very consistent. But there's one thing in particular I do want to say, actually, before everyone looks at the stats, because what everyone will do is they'll go on HLTV, they'll start typing in Ultimate's name, and they'll go, oh, this guy's like a 1.3 rated sniper in the last 3 months. That's great. Remove Dust 2 from your searches, because Dust 2 is overinflating this guy's stats massively. I think he's got like a 1.5 on D2, and then everything else is sort of like 1.1, 1.0. So it's still decent, but the guy, to be honest, has no real experience outside of like top 30 competition. I think one of the biggest teams he's sort of played against is Mal's NXT, and that didn't go great. So I'm worried. Sam, I'm not going to sell you the pro. I'm worried about the pro. Here are the red flags for the pro. But yeah, those are kind of my thoughts initially. Did it sell it to you?
What I love about this, and what B-Dog is not saying, is there he was very succinct, and he gave you a lot of good points and bad points, and he was very fair. When we originally discussed doing Ultimates, I'm going to paraphrase, but I think your first statement was, why the hell have they picked him up? He was so bad in CSGO. My first experience with Ultimate was like, wait, who is this? I went and looked. I mean, other than the last team he was on before Liquid, I didn't even know who half those other teams were. And I mean, granted, people tell me all the time that, I'm new to what is it? I'm new to the scene and I don't know anything. I did not know those teams. Fair play to everyone else. I was like, who the beep is half these teams that he's even played for? I didn't even know if he'd been on LAN. I realize he has since then.
Yeah,
he was at ESL Pro League.
But that's Na'Vi Pro League, yeah.
Yeah, that's how much it was in my brain. What the hell? Where have you come from? How did they find you? And now you've done such a terrible job. I would not have given him any money. I'm curious as to how much money Liquid's giving him and what the hell they're thinking.
It's one of those things for Liquid when you take a look at them as an organization as a whole, and they've tried to go this European route. I guess this is now, the third iteration of European CS for them, because they had Patsy Rainwaker. That's kind of the first one. Then you got the Cadian sort of international.
That went well.
Skulls. Let's see how this goes. See you later, Cadian. We'll keep Kinder. And then the third one now is we'll bring in, again, younger talents and we'll give it a go. The issue is, for me, is I think Liquid, along this journey of kind of making this European sort of like, they're not super teams, right? They're not super teams. They're competing with European players now. They've completely lost the identity of who Liquid were. Remember, Liquid is the team that won the Grand Slam. Liquid is this team that should be competing for trophies. And it feels like along the way, their talent scouting and sort of their general manager hiring has now transitioned into, well, let's just see how good we can do with some of these players and let's sort of develop. And I'm not sure how much of an influence these players, such as like Twists, NAF, would have had on Ultimate being picked up. I don't know. But when you take a look at this organization, sort of the name value and the history that Liquid's got, you got to start asking yourself questions. Why are the philosophies so muddled? Why is the design of this team so sort of almost against each other? It feels like we're trending upwards, and then it's like almost like a bell curve where you're dipping back down for no reason because of the decisions you've made to hire. It confuses me and it upsets me. And then the thing is, it feels very much a similar situation actually to Kai joining Furia, where you get a player that now gets dragged potentially under the bus completely. And if this doesn't work, his reputation can get ruined and he'll be reduced to just being back in tier 2, tier 3 forever, and he won't have any other opportunities. There's so much pressure on this Ultimate kid, and it's not really fair on him. And he gets brought into this environment. Hey, do you want to play for Liquid? Yeah, of course I want to play for Liquid. Of course I want to get this call up. Is he ready? We don't know. And now we've got all of these unrealistic expectations on him, on this young guy who's just a really aggressive AWPer.
Have you seen enough of him to kind of say he's not ready or he is ready? Has anyone seen enough of him?
No one. The thing is, no one's seen anything. Genuinely, I think the only sort of like tier 1 opposition he's faced was when he was a kid back in 2022 when he played Pro League with AGO against Simple. And he owns Simple. And that is what everyone on Twitter is saying. They're going, well, he beat Simple when it was like 2 years ago, guys. Like, it doesn't work like that. We're in a new game. He hasn't had any experience.
I was about to say,
that was one match. I really want him to do well, because when you take a look at him and you look at the demos and you look at the way he plays, he is methodical because he understands positioning really well, and he puts himself in some very good spots where he can guarantee at least more than one from the positions he puts himself in, which are very aggressive very early on. And if Ultimate thinks he can win a fight, he's got the confidence to go and do it. Then the thing that I worry about then is, well, that's in tier 2. If you then move to tier 1, I don't want him to lose his identity. That's the biggest thing when Ultimate goes to Liquid, is that will he be sort of cultivated in the climate of, this is what we've brought you in for? They literally said in the social media, he's an aggressive AWPer. I really hope he gets coached by Mytha, and Mytha does a really good job with young players. That's a big sort of tick for me with Mytha as coaching, sort of developing youngsters sort of into the system. Don't take away this kid's identity, because if you try and mold him into something he's not going to do well. But if you enable him to be aggressive and sort of give him the confidence and the tools he needs to kind of go toe-to-toe with the best and say, okay, well, you were doing this in Tier 2, just go and peak it like it's a Tier 2 game, then he will have much better results, and sort of like the delta of this player will be higher than if they try and turn him into something he's not, because Tier 1 CS is very different to Tier 2.
I was about to that was going to be my next question, though, is it's all well and good that you can be an aggressive AWPer in Tier 2, but now you move into Tier 1 where the reaction time is faster, the players are quicker, they read the game a lot better, they have a lot more experience, and that aggression can be shut down relatively quickly. And you're going up against AWPers that, I'm going to say it, I don't know enough about Ultimates, are probably a Manasi or a Zywoo are probably head and shoulders above you at the moment in terms of their level of play. If you can't be aggressive, I mean, what else is he going to bring to the table?
That's the danger. And it's one of those where you take a look at, I guess, the best comparison. I'm going to spoil the rest of the episode. The best comparison is if you compare Ultimate to ICY. ICY is supportive. He throws all this utility. So the difference that ICY would bring over Ultimate, for example, is that he would use utility to support his teammates. Will Ultimate have that in the locker? Not as much. So he'd need to learn it. But then this is where sort of the lines start to blur with, don't take the aggression out of the player, don't take away sort of this guy's identity, but at the same time he needs to know sort of, especially in Tier 1, when and where to use this sort of aggressive play style, and when it's better to sort of support and help the team. Because that's what he's going to need to do. Ultimately, if you're going for a pick and you've been shut down by Zywoo for 3 rounds, okay, let's throw flashes to enable Twists and Naf to get on the angle. Or let's try and get Yakindar to be really aggressive. Relive the glory days where Yakindar was once getting kills. Like that's kind of what Ultimate needs to do. It needs to be in a much more like team-based environment. If the system doesn't fit him, then it's going to be a disaster.
I'm curious because we can obviously guess about what's going to happen, but from what you've seen of him, and I know you've been watching demos and taking a look, I mean, is he at the level he needs? It's death by fire. I've already killed him off. It's obviously baptism by fire because his first match, he's going to go into Blast, the full final, the full groups. That's what he needs to play the first time. I mean, is he ready to go in and face all of those opponents based on what you've had a chance to see so far in CS2 with him?
So the thing is, I don't want to be harsh on him. Well, I want to
be
say
harsh,
no.
BDog, just be harsh.
I'm going to say no because he isn't ready, because he's not had that experience. But then if you're playing devil's advocate, I'm always going to try and play devil's advocate on this, because obviously I'm trying to like not sell the pro, but I mean I have to try to sell the pro, but I'm trying to like big them up a bit. How on earth is this kid supposed to have this experience if he isn't getting? Blast Full Groups is a really good event to kind of have this sort of test the waters. You know, you're having no expectations of that event. It's another Blast event where it's another group stage. You go in, you try some things, try and make it work. That's where I want to see, honestly, Ultimate just trying his style of CS in what's made it work, why he's been given this opportunity in Team Liquid in the first place in Tier 1. And if it doesn't work, then you got to start trying to rethink it, and then that's where you kind of just try and blend 2 styles of operating more in an international team environment rather than playing around Ultimate. You play around your riflers. But yeah, I think he's not ready. But the only way he's going to be ready is by getting the reps. So fine, go and play the Blast event. I think that's a very out of all the events to play first, that's probably the best one that could have got.
Fair enough. So high, I mean, it's a high risk but potentially high reward purchase, I guess, if you were going to be investing in this guy.
This is the penniest of penny stocks. This is yeah. I like it's ridiculous how risky this is, given all the reasons we said before. Like I had a look at sort of like all the AWPs I think Liquid could have potentially brought in that kind of maybe fit the profile that Liquid need, and I came up with like 6 names floating around sort of like decent Tier 1 teams that potentially could have been sort of sold, or a couple from tier 2 that I think definitely could have made the step up, and Ultimate was not on. He'd probably be like my 10th choice, if that.
Okay, so hear me out. You mentioned that you have like a list of AWPers that you would, if you were Liquid, you would have picked up over Ultimate.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, because if we have to move away from tier 1, we can touch on tier 1 in a bit, but if we are focusing on like the up and comers, who's on your list?
Okay, so let's go real up and comer. First one, he's sort of like low priority, but he's sort of in the same bucket as Ultimate. Bermilov from Mouse NXT. I just think no one would have heard of Bermilov unless you watched Mouse NXT. But better AWPer, in my opinion, just individually. I think he'll fit more into a system. Mouse NXT, if you go on HLTV and you take a look at the stats, they are either first, actually no, they're going to be second behind Zero Tenacity in most maps played in the last 3 months. All these guys do is just play official. So he's got the reps, right? Outside of sort of tier 2, if we're looking at like the fringe teams, a lot of people were saying Wrinkle from NIP. I think that would be a really good one. I know I mentioned it kind of already, but Wrinkle would be a decent pickup, I think. I think he's sort of proved himself already, and I think that's kind of what Liquid need. I think Liquid needs someone a bit more proven, and I know a lot of people are sort of saying, well, maybe this risk is good. Sure, it could be good, but that's like any risk. That's why it's called a risk. You don't know how it's going to work. This guy's proven. Maybe with Twist's IGL in, hey, guess what? That's not proven. That's a risk as well. How many risks do you want to take, sort of thing? Slend from Gamer Legion. I think he can, again, slot into a system and do quite well there. Proven. Made that same sort of little journey, but has gone through the steps. I think Ultimate, again, the reason why I'm worried about Ultimate is he's not gone from tier 2 to like tier 1. He hasn't had these little steps up. He's just gone here, and now we're at Liquid up here. So that's why I'm worried. Aggressiveness, Martinez was being floated around as well. Obviously, Movistar, then 9Z. I don't know how well that would have worked out, but aggressive AWPin, you want one of those, you get a Martinez. Someone that got benched literally yesterday would be Henny. Imagine, I don't know his English, how good his English is. Imagine Henny on Liquid. I think Henny on Liquid would be unbelievable. Maybe that's because I'm a big Henny fanboy. But Henny to Liquid, I think that would be good. No? Yes?
I don't think I think the English is a problem. Like, that would be my biggest concern. I see it. I doubt it. But I hear you. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, Henny hears me as well, and he probably doesn't understand, which is probably why Liquid didn't go for him. So, another one, right? What about Sampaius? You can't buy him out, unfortunately. But if money was no object, Sampaius, I think, would be a great AWPer. And that's my list. Are they realistic? Some of them are. Are they optimistic? Hell yeah. Are they all better than Ultimate? I think so.
Is there something that Liquid knows that the rest of us don't?
I don't know. I mean, they got a good relationship with Pasha, and obviously he came from Pasha's school of gaming. So I imagine Pasha probably sold this guy to Liquid quite a lot. We saw the tweet on socials as well, where he basically like tweeted Fnatic after Smooya left. It was like, sign Ultimate, and then they didn't. So I know Pasha believes in this kid like quite a lot. So they probably had like extensive chats with him, and they give it a go. I don't know what they know apart from maybe Liquid are going to be playing a lot more Dust 2 because that kid is a demon on Dust 2.
So there you go. But like you mentioned, if you take Dust 2 out of his stats, then we have a bit of a oh shit, now what? Right?
It's pretty average. It's pretty average. It's not bad. It's not bad, but it's not amazing. It's not Munacy. This kid is not second coming of Munacy. Like, I want to just point that out there.
Trying to think about who else could be a second coming of Munacy, and there's not a lot. So I feel like you've set the bar pretty high there, but so be it. I'm going to be dead honest. BDog, you have not sold this pro to me at all.
Oh, what a surprise.
I'm actually more I'm more concerned now than what I was when we started. I thought maybe you would give me something and like surprise me with Ultimate and make me go, oh, okay, maybe. Like the little dreamer in me was like, BDog's going to come and say something. I'm going to go, oh shit, like Liquid's got this. And I tried and I got nothing from you.
Let Liquid play D2 and he'll be very good. Play D2, play Ancient, Liquid. I don't even know if to play Ancient. So, yeah, I'm worried. I'm worried this is going to turn into a Kai situation. I've said. I'm also worried. Look, you're now got. There's so many variables in this Liquid team that doesn't make sense for Ultimate to kind of come in here. It really doesn't. Like, Twist's IGL in now. That's going to be role changes. That's going to be position changes. Ultimate's going to be aggressive AWPer. Was Cadian really aggressive when he was IGLing? Not really. So now you're going to have to adapt to that. You've got... I think he's like... I don't know if Ultimate's quiet or loud. That's another one. Liquid have previously said they've had too many voices. I don't think he's going to come in and superimpose himself. Like, maybe Wrinkle would. I think Wrinkle would be a player that would actually be really interesting for Liquid, and he'd be really loud as well. But then it's one of those where it's like, is there too many voices? So there's all of these things. Has he played international teams before? I think he's played once, if I'm not mistaken. Give me 2 seconds. Yeah, he did. He played for a team called NOM. So he's got a bit of international experience, but not at this level. So there's all these so defined, and then of course you got a new coach. You haven't got Zeus anymore. You got Biffa. So there's like a million things happening at Liquid, and they go, let's pick up a new player that is unproven, and we're going to build him up in probably the most chaotic environment and the chaotic state that Liquid is in such a long time. This is Rainwaker made more sense, is what I would say. Rainwaker made more sense.
Wow, that's a big statement. Okay, so there you go. You've done nothing to sell us Ultimate, but it is sell me this point. We got 2 players this time because it's important as we move into the start of the season. We got to shake it up. And actually, the reason we have 2 players is because this was the original star of the first show. We were going to give him a full hour. We had a plan. The problem is between BDog and I, we planned this a very long time ago, and then we're just really shit at getting our asses into recording. And I have to say, he did call it, because BDog was like, I want to focus on this player. I think he's going to potentially be picked up by Cloud9. Let's get an episode out. Then he'll get picked up by Cloud9. And we said yes. And then he got picked up by Cloud9. And we missed the mark. But it is ICY. You mentioned him earlier. You've spoken to me about him, like I said, for a couple of weeks now. He obviously came on everyone's radar at the PGL Copehagen Major. That was when people kind of went, oh, look at him when he was playing with AMKHAL. But you've been watching him for a while, and you've rated him pretty highly for a long time.
Yes. So before AMKHAL, he was in a team called Avangar. Obviously, people will know of Avangar, but this is not obviously the same Avangar that was in Tier 1. These guys are sort of primarily just kind of settling around like Tier 3, Tier 2. And I think it's actually important to kind of get a distinction on what Tier 2, Tier 3 is. To be honest, and normally people class it as Tier 2 are the guys that are just sort of outside, sort of like the top 20, like 30 teams, like are playing in all of the online like cups and making it like really far. They're like kind of on the edge. They're sort of like the gatekeepers. Waiting for the next opportunity for like Tier 1 events for them to jump in. And then Tier 3 is just kind of everything else below it. So I would say, yeah, Avangar, definitely a Tier 3 team. They were doing pretty decently in some like CCTs. When I say decently, I mean they were making it like in like decent group stage runs. They made it to playoffs a couple of times, I believe. And ICY was just destroying people. And the rise that this kid has had has been very fast. And I think this guy, it's one of those where it is almost like exponential, his growth. And the reason why people, I think, get so excited about ICY, sort of like me, for example, is because, yes, you take a look at the RMR and the Major. That was kind of expected, because you take a look at the AMKHAL team, the system that they've got is all about setting each other up for success. It's not built around one player, it's built around the collective. And this is why it gets me so excited for ICY, because he's so young. He has got such a brain for CS. Like, you can tell everything he does is with purpose. Every piece of utility he throws is so deliberate, trying to create an opportunity because of this system that's developed by AMKHAL. But also, you put him into these situations, he's just popping off with the AWP play, he's just going everywhere, just crazy, getting these multi-kills. So, mechanical ceiling, high. game knowledge, game interpretation high, and that's why it's exciting. And the kid's 19. Like, again, this makes me feel old every time I'm sat here going, this guy's 19. It's like, come on. Like, what was I doing when I was 19? Like, nothing as cool as this. So it's awesome. Obviously, stats, people will look at stats for IC 1.18 rating is pretty good, especially when you're an AWPer. You expect the AWPer to have like some of the highest stats in the team, but especially when you add in the context that AMKHAL were setting him up for success, but the philosophy of AMKHAL as a team was pretty much the individuals are a collective. Like, we are one, not the parts of just individuals popping off. So that's cool, and that's why it kind of gets me excited for Cloud9.
I'm excited for the Cloud9 move just because I'm curious to see how IC performs with a new level of player, I guess. No disrespect to AMKHAL, but I think if we have to compare, and it is I think it is a good comparison when we look at Ultimate and we put them on the page with IC and look at the like for like here, is how does IC stand up with this next level of player? We said that Ultimate might struggle, that the pressure might get to him. I think that the opposite is true here for IC based on what we've seen. It's almost like he was primed and ready for this step, and we started seeing that a little bit at the major. You knew that it was time for him to move into tier 1.
Yes, and also the reason why it's exciting is because this Cloud9 team actually looks pretty decent for him to kind of come in, because I think the IGL styling of sort of Crad and Boomich is pretty similar. Think back to when Boomich was on Na'Vi and was IGLing and they were having all of that success. It was because it was very systematic. Obviously, Blade's going to be a big influence of that, but even when Boomich has kind of come into Cloud9 now and taken over the IGL role over Electronic, it's very methodical, it's very systematic. You just hope that their T-side flashbang usage goes up, because that has been plaguing this Cloud9 core for like 2 years. But the whole point is, it's very sort of like team-based, it's systems-based. And IC is a very big systems-based AWPer, and you kind of get this difference where he needs to kind of be integrated into this team, and he needs to play very team-based CS for him to thrive. If he plays something very different, then it's going to go completely the opposite way. But again, a player like Shiro, I think, is, again, very systems-based. You can see it really works well on the Spirit setup. So that's an immediate like-for-like, because you're not swapping your style of AWPer already in the team you've got, even if it is a new team that Cloud9 have. The culture and the structure is going to be very much the same, and Groove is really going to help with that. So that's... I'm waffling, but I really do think that this team for him to slot into makes the most sense in tier 1.
Definitely not waffling. I mean, I think it's super interesting because you've seen a lot of him, so you understand exactly what we can expect from him, and that's obviously what you're showcasing now. And I think for Cloud9 fans or any fans of tier 1 Counter-Strike, that gives them a little bit more insights into the pickup specifically. For you, I mean, other than what you've already said, why do you think Cloud9 went the route of IC?
Because he fits the profile. He fits the profile of... This is probably the best. The thing is, you can get so many like CIS AWPers. There's like a million of them, but he fits the profile more in terms of he will listen, I think, in the system, because he's bought into the ideas of Crad and AMKHAL. So I think he'll buy into the Cloud9 project. Obviously, it's also his first step up of having a real, like, this is tier 1. Like, he showed himself and he can do it. Again, a proven track record. Poor Ultimate, we've not seen him against tier 1, so we're just going, well, we've not seen him play. We don't. But I see we've seen him play against tier 1, and he was very good. So it's like, okay, well, that's a big tick. We already know he can do this. Another one is, I think he will believe in Boomich, Groove. I think like these guys, like he was young, he probably was watching Na'Vi, he was watching Gambit sort of during COVID, like Rise Up, and he was probably watching these guys and being like, oh, okay. So these are people that have done it before, like proven guys that have made it deep runs. You're playing with Axile, who I hope he can get back to his best. That's another tangent, but I hope he can do it, because he's like one of the best to do it. I mean, one of the best riflers has fallen off now. That's another conversation. Inter's moving into this team means that it's going to be a very supportive team. It means that the entire philosophy is going to be the team is king. Again, that's why it's great that Cloud9 picked up ICY, because everything is aligning. There's no sort of deviations from the idea that this team wants to go down. And you got Heavy God, who can just pop off, but also Heavy God is a very humble dude. And I just know that from like what I've heard from people telling me at Endpoint when he's gone to OG, everyone seemingly likes working with this guy. Very hardworking, very motivated to do well and succeed. And on Endpoint, he would kind of just do whatever it would take to win the game. And whether that was him popping off and getting like 40 kills, that's aside. But it's also one of those where he'd go in first and he'd make sure there was good trade spacing. He'd believe in whatever Max would call at the moment. He'd go in. You could just see that just from watching the amount of Endpoint I watched, the amount of OG when he moved to OG. So this team I think is going to believe in the project and believe in the idea, and that's exactly what Cloud9 need after recovering from the let's build a super team. Oh no. I think orgs should stop saying we're building a super team, we're building an XYZ, because it never works. Let's just say, here's the roster. Let's see what happens.
We have a whole episode on Feed the Trolls. This will come out after that episode where we're breaking down this whole Cloud9 roster. And I know like a lot of people are very excited about it. I'm one of those. A lot of people are separated. But I agree with you on the whole super team thing. I'm kind of over it now. Stop saying it. You get me too excited. It doesn't work. I mean, obviously for a lot of Cloud9 fans, I think the real excitement about ICY is we finally have an AWPer. Because that was something that CS2 and Cloud9 seemed to not have. Yeah. That... I was like, woohoo, an AWPer. I didn't actually care. Yeah, I was like, hell, you could pick up Ultimate. At least it's someone who can pick up an AWP play, so that's exciting. Let's address, though, the drama that came with ICY, because this was also the thing where we were talking about featuring this guy. What the hell? I mean, it was so confusing to me, because obviously AMKHAL initiated the statement saying that they were benching him because he was practicing with a team without their knowledge. Obviously everyone was guessing that it was Cloud9. Turns out it was. Then there were the stories about how Cloud9 wouldn't be able to compete if they picked him. Like, what the hell was going on there?
I don't know. Is my honest interpretation is I don't have a bloody clue what happened there. What I do know is this all sort of happened right in player break. So maybe it was a little bit before. I'm not sure. I'm going to assume it was player break. I'm going to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. I hope it's player break. So everyone's just kind of on their holidays anyway. And then ICY's probably... ICY's like 19, and he's probably just gone, oh, Cloud9. They want to trial me? Okay, sure. But he's not actually gone and said to anyone at AMKHAL, hey guys, by the way, I got offered to be a trial. At the same time, though, that's not just on him. That's also on Cloud9. Why aren't they going saying to AMKHAL, hey, we want to try out your player? Is it okay if we do this? Why? I don't know why it's gone from org to player and having that responsibility rather than just org to org, and they're just not talking about it. So I'm not sure. I don't think all of the blame could be put on ICY, but at the same time, he's a 19-year-old kid. It's a bit of an immature thing for him to do. He probably should have communicated to everyone involved so they wouldn't have this sort of like public backlash benching fiasco. I think they benched him to kind of save their blushes. It feels like he was going anyway. So if you're sat in AMKHAL, if you're ICY and then Cloud9 comes along, you're probably going to go to Cloud9 like 9 times out of 10. So them benching him was probably just kind of like, yes, we won the moral victory, but in Ultimate it was probably just happening anyway.
Also, because before all of this happened, I mean, you and I had this conversation where you said, I think Cloud9 will probably look to pick him up because it wasn't like, it shouldn't have come as a surprise to anyone. It was a conversation that was happening already. Well, we don't know if it was a conversation happening between them, let's to clarify, but it was a conversation happening amongst fans going, hey, listen, there's probably a good chance that he would be the pickup.
Pretty much. It shouldn't have come as a surprise, but I guess for AMKHAL, in a weird way, if you are going on player break, you've then gone, okay, let's have a few weeks off everyone and we'll come back, we'll reset for the season. And then you come back after the season and you've had no communication. Suddenly IC's been doing all these trials and he just goes, hey coach, hey squad, I want to go right now. That kind of throws all of your plans for the future when you come back out the window. So I can completely understand why they would be shell-shocked by it, because replacing a player like ICY is hard. And then trying to get that all up to speed and then moving forward with your season, and then you're realigning your expectations because you don't have this player anymore, you don't have your 5. It's tough. So they're gonna obviously be a bit pissed.
I mean, do you think it changes if you're investing in this player? Does it raise any red flags? Are you concerned that this whole thing went down, or is this just like a blip in the radar that everyone will forget?
Everyone will forget about it. Eric, give it like a month. I feel like people have already probably forgotten about it, to be honest. But when it comes to this, all it is just making sure that, I mean, Boomich and Groove will be pretty well aligned together, but it's just pretty much just making sure that ICY is just making sure that he's not like ill-disciplined. Whether he has that or not, I don't have a clue. I do not have a clue. I don't think this is going to affect anything. I don't think this is going to be a permanent thing of his. So yeah, blip on the radar. There's no point speculating about it, because at the end of the day, it's Cloud9, one of the biggest organizations in esports, coming to you saying, hey, do you want to play? And as a 19-year-old kid, you've gone, sure. That's it. That's all that's happened.
Fair enough. So, I mean, now that you've told us all of this about RC, we've had this conversation. Hell, here's your moment, BDog. Sell me this, bro.
Have I not done it already? Do you need more to convince?
I need you to summarize it beautifully.
Sure, I will. Okay, ICY, 19 years old. AWPer is very systems based. We'll play for the team. We'll set up your stars to perform. You want AMKHAL to become a little bit more of a beast? Well, ICY's got a flashbang for you. You want Heavy God to run in and just wield all this sort of stuff together and blend the ideas together? Well, don't worry, because ICY's looking over his shoulder and he's killing like 4 of them for Heavy God to run into the site and plant the bomb. Like, this team is going to work very well. This team, again, like every team that comes together, guys, and I'm going to stress this enough and a lot on this show, please give them a little bit of time. Do not expect results immediately. Do not expect them to win trophies out the gate. If they do, that's cool. But that's not going to be consistent. This team is now going to ascend, and it's going to take a little bit of time to fuse together. But when it does, it will remind you quite a lot of the old Gambit that was winning a lot of trophies. Because that is the capabilities of these players. And that is what I do believe. And it will take some time for it to get there. But I'm saying, please be patient. Trust the process. ICY's a very good AWPer. Invest in him.
Very different take to Ultimate and it's interesting for me because you commentate and you get to watch so much of the tier 2 and the tier 3 scene. It's almost like you went, this is ICY's time. You've seen that. You can see the progression. I'm getting the impression from you on the other side with Ultimate. You're going, well, hold on. It wasn't the timing is all wrong.
There's too many variables with the Ultimate move to the point where that is going to undermine his sort of progression into the space. And I really worry that this potentially is not the right organization for him to sort of develop him properly, because it needs to work. The pressure is going to be immediate. The pressure is going to be very high on this Liquid team to succeed, because if it doesn't, not only are you wasting the fans' time again with this trip in towards Europe, you're also wasting sort of the prime, maybe even sort of last years of Twists of NAF, who are now moving into sort of different roles, Twist IGL, for example. So there is an awful lot more at stake for Ultimate than there is for ICY, because I believe that if that Cloud9 team doesn't work, which, I mean, I don't know, Cloud9 feel cursed when it comes to an org when it picks up teams. Ever since the Colossus, ever since the Super Team announcement. They did it twice! was it the Colossus? No, that was complexity. Whatever wording they used, right? When it doesn't matter, right? Ever since they did that, Cloud9 as an org has been a poison chalice. But if Icy plays well, stats-wise, he will get another move somewhere. If Ultimate doesn't play well on this Liquid team, I can't see him getting a move to another tier 1 team anytime soon. That's the difference.
So I do believe, just to you were correct the first time. Colossus was Cloud9. It was the Henry G moment.
Oh, it was Juggernaut.
I do believe it was
Juggernaut
the Colossus.
Complexity.
Juggernaut,
yes, okay,
there
cool.
we go.
Yeah, okay. I was right.
So
nice.
so it was there. Yeah, so it's correct. But are you excited? I mean, like, this is the first show, so it's kind of, the idea is to give everyone like a little bit of a feel of what to expect personality-wise. But I think the thing that's excited me, and what I get excited about, despite the fact that I agree that Ultimate will probably fail miserably, the exciting thing here is seeing that new talent move through, because that's always a fun one, right? And I know for you, it must be the ICY one specifically. You get to watch him for a long time. As a commentator, you go, "Oof, this guy's good." And then you see him get picked up. You go, it's a little bit of a like, yeah, I got that. But also just exciting because you followed this youngster's career for this period of time.
It's really nice seeing it, because it's obviously just you're following. When you're casting, when you're commentating sort of these sort of tier 2, tier 3 events, you're commentating a chapter in this pro's life, and you look at it and you think, wow, I really hope that they go on and they progress in their journey, and then they do. And I've seen it sort of like quite a few times, like Slend, for example, who was on Mouse NXT, he then goes to Endpoint, and then he then goes on to Gamer Legion, and now he's playing at the top. Same with Volt. I casted Volt in like Fnatic Rising in WePlay, and now he's playing on Gamer Legion. Like, it's really cool to kind of see and like almost kind of like be along for the ride, right, with these players and their journeys. And it's really, I don't know, it's really nice. Selfishly, it's cool for me as well, where I'm kind of developing as a caster, and it's like, oh, I casted you here, and now we're both here. Like, how cool is this? Like, it's awesome. It's like, there's so many examples I could say, but we'd be here for a very long time and people would get bored. But this is why I wanted to bring the show to you, because there are so many examples of these pros that get these moves. There's also so many of these pros in tier 2 that are like waiting. They are so close, or they are there already to make that jump, but there's no opportunities at the moment. And it's so important we kind of highlight them, because when they come along, we then go, oh, hey, we already knew about this because Sam and Brandon just said, watch out for this guy in a few months, and then here he is.
I love how positive you are, because of course the other option is that Sam and Brandon tell you to watch out for some guy and then he fails miserably, and we get to go back on that and talk about yeah, it is going to be funny. We can talk about how wrong we got it. And that's kind of the idea here, right, with Sell Me This Pro, is to get people a little bit more invested in that up-and-coming talent, and hopefully you're supporting them and you're behind them. You don't have this ultimate situation where you're going, who the hell is that? When they finally do get their big break, you have a little bit of an understanding of what that player is going to bring to a team, what they could potentially add to the scene as a whole, and I'm excited as well for you to kind of point out the players who could be the next m0NESY, who could be that superstar that everyone's been waiting for. No pressure, B-Dog. No pressure at all.
That's a really big bar. How about these are the players that are going to definitely be in tier 1. I'll do that, rather than, maybe not definitely. These are the players that should be in tier 1, rather than this is m0NESY. This is the next m0NESY. I don't think anyone will ever be the next m0NESY apart from m0NESY. And Donk, I suppose. And Donk. Although I was wrong about Artfrost, so I'll leave the episode off with that. I thought Artfrost was going to be the next m0NESY.
Oh, wow. So, I mean, what we've got from this entire episode is that B-Dog, maybe if there was money on the table and we were investing in players were penny stocks, maybe don't take your financial advice?
No, I mean, I left accountancy to become a caster, so I would definitely not take my financial advice.
What a way to sell. What a way to sell. The whole premise of the show is you should listen, but then don't listen to a thing I say. Anyway, I like it. It's good. Okay, so next time we have this conversation, you're gonna showcase a new player for us. Tell us a little bit more about them. More than likely won't be in a tier 1 team yet. We focused on these two because it's player break and then new names, but you're going to be mixing it up. Have you got your eyes on quite a few? Are you ready with a list for us to feature?
Yeah, I think I sent you like 8 or 9. So we've got quite a few. So I hope you like the idea. Otherwise,
it'll really suck if you don't.
It'll be really painful if you don't.
If you have any players that you think should be featured, you can let us know in the comments. If you like the idea, let us know as well, because we both desperately crave affirmation from you. So there you go. This is our first episode. We hope that you'll come back, and we'll see you soon.